I must say that this is a very exciting crowd. So to Steve's point, up until end of last year, we used to run these user conferences, 3 events, one in the US, one in Europe, and one in APAC. And we would get roughly around 1,000 to 1,500 attendees. And then we decided, you know what, let's use that budget in a more effective way and do these summits. So we have 21 summits scheduled for this year. And this by far, I think we just did a quick count. This is by far the biggest attendance we have for the summits that we've had this year. So round of applause to all of you for making that commitment. Thank you so much for taking the time and to be here. And let's get started. All right. First of all, thank you, Steve, for putting that beautiful picture of me on the slide. I look like Gollum. It's the ears, you know. I can't help it. All right. A quick introduction to WSO2. Some of you, before I get here, if I could get a quick show of hands, how many of you are using WSO2 today, either in production or in a development setting? Show of hands, please. All right. And how many of you actually have a subscription with either DARCs or any of the service providers, or with WSO2 for all of that? Let's see a show of hands who don't have. That's probably the best way to. You are using WSO2, but you don't have. So, all right, account managers, take a note, chase after them. All right, I'm just kidding. All right, so WSO2, we started in 2005. So we are 14 years old. We are coming up on 14 years. I actually joined the company in 2006, so I was the first sales hire. I'm still technically in my first sales role. I used to be an engineer. The CEO, founder Sanjeev Veeravarna, for some reason said, why don't you give sales a shot? I was like, okay. Never done sales in my life, but he said, give it a shot at sales. And I'm still with the company. And today I head the global operations for WSO2. 14 years old. We have roughly about 600 employees globally. We have 7 physical offices in Sri Lanka, in the UK, in Germany, in Brazil, North America, and in Sydney, in Australia. We are committed to open source. You will get to hear more about open source, and of course we have a separate session this afternoon as well talking about open source, why we actually committed towards open source, and why we still believe open source is the right way forward. We were initially funded by Intel Capital. Right now we are vested by Toba Capital and Cisco as well. And we are growing at a fairly good clip. We are growing at 50% year on year. We generated $37 million in subscription revenue. Total revenue last year was roughly around 50 million, and we expect to grow at 50% year on year this year as well. We have 500 plus subscription customers. Of course, we have times 10, 20 that are using WSO2 without a subscription, but that's perfectly fine, and we support that as well. But we are growing that base quite aggressively as well throughout these years. Another case in point, you probably know this already. If you don't, it's an important point, is that last year Gartner positioned WSO2 as the world's largest open source integration company. This is from a revenue standpoint. So the runner-up, believe it or not, is Red Hat. So we own about 37% of the market share. If you take the total middleware space, which is about a $34 billion market, you have the whales like Oracle, IBM, and all these guys in. There's a small sliver that's pure open source. And if you take that open source market, we own 37% of that market share. And then second in line is Red Hat with about 30%. So what I'm trying to say here is that if in your evaluations, your technology selection, if open source is a key criteria, you certainly should be looking at WSO2. I'm not saying we are the right choice, but we should definitely be on that list of vendors that you want to evaluate if open source is in fact one of your key criteria for selection. It's not just from a revenue standpoint, even from a product functionality capability standpoint, we are one of the leaders. So Forrester Q4 of last year gave this position for us, which we are quite proud of. We are one of the 4 leading API management vendors in the world today. So we are being partnered up with Google by way of Apigee, Software AG. God knows why Software AG is there, but they're there. And IBM. Right, so this is a huge accomplishment for WSO2, and for me personally, if you keep WSO2 aside, this also proves the point that a pure open source technology company can be a leader, right, in this space. And who would have thought that would happen 10, 15 years ago? So it's a huge achievement. We are very proud of this, and we will continue to be the leader. That's our objective when it comes to API management. You probably know this already. We are a platform company. We are not just about API management. We have all kinds of other capabilities as well that supports a digital transformation organization. Identity access management is another key product that we offer, and Kapinga Cole positioned us as one of the leading vendors in that space as well. Of course, we are not the only open source vendor there. As you can see, ForgeRock is there as well. But if you were to look for a open source company that provides a complete platform, again, WS2 is the only company that stands out in this report. And this is another thing that we do. So when it comes to open source, we try and practice the open source paradigm all the way through to how we operate our company as well. So for a private company, you rarely put your financials out. So these are published numbers. So at the end of each year, we publish our numbers openly. We have no issues with that. And as you can see, like I said, we are growing at a very good pace, 50% year on year. Just to give you a sense of reference here, MuleSoft, when they went public, they were growing at 51, 52% year on year subscription. And they have even though they call themselves open source, they in fact have the dual licensing model, right? So you have your children's edition, which is open source. You don't get all the capabilities. But if you want the enterprise version of it, for that you actually need to pay a license fee. So they were growing at about 51, 52% just before they went public. So WSO2 with a very permissive licensing model, right? There were a couple of show of hands here where you are actually using WSO2 with 0 contracts, subscription contracts with WSO2. But even with that, we are able to grow at a good pace of 50%. So it's not just the technology capability, but we also have been able to prove that you can run a sustainable business on a pure open source business model. Another good thing, which is something that subscription-based companies yearn for pretty much, is the dollar-based net retention rate. What this means is that our existing customers are continuing to buy more services, products from WSO2. So hypothetically speaking, if we were to shut down sales and marketing today, WSO2 will still grow at a small pace. For a subscription-based company, that's golden. That's what everybody wants. So we are growing at a very good pace there as well. And then if you look at where we are getting our customers, they're all over the place. We are across multiple verticals: financial, healthcare, government, transport, education, you name it. And we have flagship names based all over the world. And some of these logos are actually here. We'll be talking about what their experience with WS2 as well. So this really drives the point of what we are trying to talk about today, which is about APIs, is that APIs today has a much bigger impact in organizations than technology. Technology is essentially an enabler to organizations to leverage the capabilities of APIs. It's so significant that today's, if you take the internet traffic, almost 25% of internet traffic is coming by way of APIs. Almost $1 trillion worth of revenue is being redistributed within these API networks globally as well. And about 25% of the revenue, global revenue, is running through APIs as well. So it's a significant increase of the usage of APIs that we are seeing. And why is this, right? Again, this is not necessarily rocket science, but it's because of this digital transformation journey that everyone's on. It's a buzzword that came about a couple of years ago, but nowadays it's no longer an option. It's not a nice-to-have thing. It's almost a must-have. If you are not part and parcel of some sort of a digital transformation, then as an organization, you're going to fall behind. You're going to be outdated. You won't have that level of relationship that you have with customers, and you're going to lose as an organization at the end of the day. And as a consumer, if you were to take a step back, it's an exciting time to be a consumer. If you look at different verticals, I love telling stories. I'm a sales guy. I tell stories. For example, in the US, there was this company called Metromile that just came up a couple of years ago. About 3 years ago, they're already valued at $500 million. And they came up with this unique idea to address the auto insurance market. Now, the standard rule is if you have a car, you give the make, model, when the year it was built, and you pay a fixed fee on a monthly basis for insurance, right? But at a fundamental level, if you think about it, you really need the insurance when you actually drive in the car, right? When it's parked, you really don't need insurance. Okay, fine, you have robberies and whatnot, but that's a small part of it. But for the most part, insurance is necessary when you actually drive in the car. If you meet with an accident, you want the insurance to cover it. So what these guys did was, said, fine, we'll only charge you for the amount that you drive, right? If you drive only 10 miles a month, we'll charge you for those 10 miles because it's for those 10 miles that you actually need the insurance. So it's a very simple business model. They don't have physical offices. You sign up for it online. They'll send you a pulse device. So obviously they're going to start tracking your vehicle if you're okay with that. I'm a customer. They send you a pulse device. You just plug it in. And they have this platform where they will start tracking your car. And for every mile that you drive, they charge you 4 cents. Right? So I had 2 cars. I used to pay like $200. It's down to 1 car now because of the ex-wife took the other car. We'll talk about that later. Talk about that over drinks. That's a different kind of digital transformation. So I used to be paying almost $200. Now I'm paying less than $50, right? And company's only 3 years old, worth over $500 million, right? So they're rattling the cage, right? All these other insurance companies are like, all right, what do we do now, right? So now they need to pick up the pace, realize that this is the new way of doing things, and get in with the bandwagon. So those are some of the simple examples. Another one is a company called Sophie. I'm pretty sure you have this stuff here as well. Banks that are literally built out of digital, they don't have physical offices. They're pure digital banks. A bank called Sophie in the US, I'm a customer there as well, been there for about 8 years. They're worth more than $1 billion. No physical offices, everything is online. You can get loans within minutes, no expenses, no rates, none of that stuff. So what it goes to show is that as a consumer, there are so many demands coming up from markets, from different markets. And for you to sustain, to be able to compete in these markets, you need to be nimble. You need to be agile so you can quickly respond to these different business requirements and then be able to move forward. And the way that it really has happened is this aggregation of architectures, breaking your application, your monolithic application into different components, right, which we call endpoints. Break all this stuff down to endpoints so that you can reuse, repurpose, and recreate new value to your customers, to your supply chain, and so on and so forth. So as of today, there's close to about 50 billion endpoints today, with expectations that it's going to grow to over 1 trillion endpoints within the next few years. So there's this explosion of endpoints that's happening, and APIs are really the way in which you can service these endpoints, right? And then of course that's where we get into this cloud native conversation, how cloud infrastructure helps you to scale and be able to support these kinds of endpoints and scalability and so on. And at the end of the day, if you look at a microscopic level, all these endpoints, the way they integrate with each other is through via APIs, right? And this is what Randy Hefner, Gartner analyst that we keep in touch with quite closely, has been saying, which he pretty much hit the nail on the head there, saying that APIs create business agility that fosters the rapid business reconfiguration necessary to continually adapt to an unknown future, right? There was a time when organizations could predict what's going to happen in the next 2 to 3 years. Those days are gone. You simply don't know what's going to come next. There was predictability in terms of usage, capacity, and all of that stuff. That, again, is out the window. So how do we deal with all this stuff? And the heart of it is really APIs. And these are some of the customers that we've been working with for the past several years. Steve made a very good point in recognizing the customers who've been with us for the longest time. This is some of them. Of course, there's much more. Telecom Kenya, again, we are in Kenya as well. Fairly large deployment there. Discover Vitality is here, where they'll be talking about CITA and Time Bank as well. There's much more involved in here. So, WS2, as I said, we've been around for 14 years. In our experience, these are the key 3 reasons as to why a customer would decide to go with WS2. We believe these are the 3 fundamentals that we feel that makes us stand out. One is that we have an integrated platform. For us, from day one, both Sanju and Paul realized that integration is not a simple problem to solve. It's not a point product, cannot solve this issue. You're talking about integration, you're talking about governance, security, analytics, and so on and so forth. So you need to have this platform of multiple capabilities in order to address this integration issue. The second point is open source. Clearly, that has always been our differentiator. As the first sales guy, that was the first speech that I would do, saying, if you use IBM Oracle, we provide more or less the same capabilities. Oh, by the way, but we are a 100% open source company, right? You can use the technology today without paying us a cent. So we'll talk more about open source. We have a session in the afternoon as well, talk more as to why this is really a key differentiator in today's environment. And of course, talk about agile transformation methodology. This is something that's coming out of our CTO's office. Agile transformation is key when we are talking about predictability and be able to respond to new key markets, requirements, and so on. It's not just about being able to generate those APIs, but also be able to quickly translate that into an actual product that you can provide to your end customers, to your supply chain, and so on. So we'll be talking about that as well later on today. So coming to the platform, if you were to just dig into those three key topics, API management is our flagship product. More than half of our customers, 500 customers, use API management. And we manage close to about 20,000 APIs today across 2,000 organizations. This number has obviously increased since beginning of this year. And from that, we've been able to complement integration. You have APIs in place. What are your integration capabilities in order to support those underneath integrations? Then, of course, you have identity and access management. These two go hand in hand as well. If you're going to be exposing APIs, both internally and externally, what's your security looking like as of today? That's a key component that most people tend to forget. So we manage about 60 million identities. I believe this has grown to close to about 80 million as of today. And when it comes to integration, we do 6 trillion transactions a year today, and this tends to oscillate quite significantly. For example, eBay's every single transaction is running through WS2 as of today. So it has its own seasonalities. If you have Black Friday here in South Africa, but it's huge in the US, the traffic is roughly around 5 to 6 billion a day. On a Black Friday, that goes up to about 15 to 20 billion transactions a day. So it's a significant spike in terms of a transaction that needs to be supported, and we are doing that as of today as well. Open source. So, at a very high level, open source, at the end of the day, what we provide to our customers is really an integration capability. And integration means essentially how do you get 2 points to talk to each other, right? So we feel open source provides the best platform in which you can come up with a technology that really makes sense, that comes from the community itself. It's not a technology that's built within a small office, within a bubble where they feel this is the right way, these are the right standards, these are the kinds of integrations that needs to happen. We've taken it from the field itself. Now, as I said earlier on, our API management product is the world's largest simply because of our customers, our users, the feedback they've given to us. The ESB is one of the leading products today. It's because of the load and the stability that we had to provide to eBay, right? eBay wouldn't have gone with the product of WS2 if we weren't able to manage that kind of scale. So we believe that taking community feedback is the best way to have rapid innovation in products and also build a product that makes sense, that's relevant and applicable to today's market. And as you can see, we have been a thought leader around the open source space, over 1 million contribution to the open source forum, 7th largest Apache contributor. Fun fact, outside of the US, the largest open source contribution in the Apache world is in fact in Sri Lanka, outside of the US. And we are in the top 100 in terms of the GitHub contributorships as well. And this is something that we believe was the right way to go. Open source was going to create a new market. And last year, we were, the market responded and proved that our position that we took 15 years ago was in fact valid. Last year was a tremendous year for open source. Red Hat's acquisition by IBM proved that enterprises are in fact looking at open source in a very, very real way. As I said earlier on, we own about 37% of the market, and we were growing at double digits. If you take IBM, Oracle, specifically IBM, Oracle, and TIBCO, they're actually losing market share in double digits, right? So IBM realized if you are to continue to expand in the market, we need to go to the next best thing, and that's open source. And Red Hat is by far the most successful open source company in the world as of today. So GitHub was acquired by Microsoft, MuleSoft by Salesforce, so Hortonworks, Cloudera mergers. So this went to prove that open source is in fact a sustainable business, and large real organizations, enterprises are banking their businesses on open source as well. So it was a tremendous year, and we realized this 15 years ago, but it took 15 years for the likes of IBM to realize it as well. So agility, as I said earlier on, at the end of the day, we provide the technology know-how, But agility is, again, is a model that has to be built into an organization. And agility is not something that you can do overnight. It takes time. You have to think of people, processes, as well as technology. So we've had the benefit of hindsight. We've been in the business for almost 15 years. The CTO office actually collated all the information, the experiences that we've gotten from working with all types of customers of all sizes, and come up with a maturity model. So this maturity model is categorized into 5 different areas, taking into account people, process, technology, and so on. And we use this as a benchmark to help organizations who are at their early stages of figuring out how are we going to get into this digital space to really figure out where they are as of today. And we do this in a very high touch mode where we have consultants coming on site. We have people like Paul and our CTO office that will go on site, spend a couple of days there, and talking with multiple groups of people, and sort of mapping out, okay, which stage are you at in terms of maturity. And then what we do is we have also developed references architectures, which are more like cookie cutter approaches where you can start figuring out, okay, I'm here, how do I get to this next phase, and what are the architectures, different kinds of architectures that we need to have in place. So those are the things that we do as part of our CTO office and the R&D team. And we want to bring to the table not just the technology, but also the best practices as to how you can roll something like this out as well. And so if you were to look at all the value propositions that we bring to the table, besides the products, as you can see, we have our products. We allow them to be reused, developed, reused, run, managed within our ecosystem. And then our builders in these references. The need to have R&D team can our stack as well. So this is our WS3 integrated platform. I also feel that as a vendor, our responsibility to know what's coming. Right? So it's not being address your immediate requirements, but also be able to what next and as well. Is that so the last question, how that is go and buy the right? If you take, they see a big thing up there, who's the lead, and go and buy the. Them see and get that enough, promote continuity with the organization. And give you ESB. Pick and choose one you want because of their acquiring. So what to do is instead of acquiring either a single log, everything was built to do. If we are trend future, want to have a that allows us to get to that next, right? So when we first started, the was based on website. It started since moved into Visual direction. There will that will come, but be able to realize this is where you want next big this exact way there, not about putting something in place. So the reason very much figuring out that is down that right. Integration again, I this at a is the co-author in this space as well. And the statistics I found quite that Agile published every and turns out that it's not a new it's for a very around 96% of address type of but only 1% is really value real abilities on a free. So the people in Agile don't necessarily see it. So what was the cause of it? This was that we might integrate middleware till landscape architecture. There's nothing wrong with it. This today used to be still promote have your application development who are agile, there's everything. But when it comes to the through common centrally, you have common responsibility monitor. So even if you're agile, get rolled in production, and that's to connect, right? Ops is handling actually have a system that because guys, if the team we double, then there's a sort of plan as well. So it has go down and not really benefit presentation. Again, this is something that building that's reusable and which well and where a development team is that logic also create integration logic, right? This is picture. The service loves you to embed application, but in our stay autonomous. We need to logic about a can be deployed single up and down and required some sort of where you can see what's happening in that cell as well. So you look at the two as of today, layer architecture, role, and happening as this, and then enterprise. This is cell architecture. Not just application, also be a micro security and this that we time we depending on in terms of, there are some who are for faith say okay this architecture and we are to take as well most often well. Again, the thing that we do think what's ahead of us, be able to full of we will have architecture with continuity into our product as integration invest on specific to be the open source alt key vector of open source is integrated around the third. As of today, we have some access manager number one. We will leave that architecture. There's no question. Something up as well with Kubernetes and all big and we have product that nature as well. The about our micro we call of in the works and so forth. In fact, in those wrong. This is the next thing. This is our R&D mistake as of today. The programs that we think about that's at the heart is built for integration. Language understand program APIs. So we will compete with different, but the level of we get is exponential. One is around the again in this separate more than welcome with it, but good. I'm quite excited about this. The QCon in Seattle, two up. Oh, cube, yes, cube, and this today, right? We have this there as well. We are one of the sponsors at KubeCon that's supporting Belgium. A lot of the commercial, the boring. All right. So as I said earlier, there are 100. So we don't define download site into version, something like that. How we monitor by providing update. Once you have to do it, you want to increase down 2365. If shuts 1 minute, so 1 minute, that's millions and millions. Subscription mitigate that risk. That you in production, we have that 24/5 to you. It's like how you phone laptop will make it to you. This is something no other days that we can support. Challenge you to another vendor who has that subscription version will that for 10 6 of time. Like I all of the part of as well. The access is tremendous and getting they need to be fully booked. But around the world, we have 20 single city is being sponsored now. So we believe, get with very and part work is that I mean to be system, but thus we have hand over there and as well. And the close here, the world's largest company from a revenue point, is a you want to consider put double click products out. Right? Hopefully we look check out largest again we have and believe so and at 6th largest vendor, I 5th now the acquisition. One get acquired and we'll that's the anyway. So that's my list too. Of the rest of this we have time list and can help you. If not, have a managers and the other talk through thing. Thank you very much.